Welcome back. All right, so like I was saying, welcome back to yet another episode of Fox Can Fix It. Still working on the 82 Honda Civic. When you've got older cars, especially older cars with timing belts that have been sitting for a long time, once you've got them running, or maybe even sometimes before you get them running, what you're going to want to do is at least inspect and probably change the timing belt. A lot of these older cars, like this one specifically, is an interference fit engine. Now, what is an interference fit engine? An interference fit engine means that should the cam and crank timing change too much, the valves and pistons are most likely going to hit each other, bending valves, maybe holding pistons, definitely causing a lot of damage and expense. So what we're going to do is we are going to change this timing belt because I don't know when it was changed last. This is one of the simpler timing belts to do, so I figured it would be a great time to show everybody roughly how to do a timing belt. Even if yours may have more camshafts or more details to it, the basics remain the same. I've already got a part. Let me go show you what it looks like. Over here. I guess I'll just scoot. We'll go this way.
All right, never mind that. Change of plans. It's a complete disaster to get all of this stuff off so you can see what I'm doing. So I've stripped it down to here. We're gonna do this mock-up first to show you what comes off, and then we'll do the timing belt at the end of this. So one of the first things you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take this crank pulley bolt out. It's a 17 millimeter, not a big deal. It comes out, set it off to the side, keep it, you're gonna need it. This pulley does not require a puller. You can just wiggle it. Next, what you're gonna have to do if you have AC, take the AC compressor, leave the lines on it, just move it up and out of the way. Then after that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that hold the bracket, and then 2 for the motor mount itself, right here, 1, 2. So a total of 6 bolts to get this out of the way. And when you do that, you're gonna wanna support the engine with like a 4x4, a 2x4, and a jack, just to support it at the oil pan or somewhere around there. So you're not putting all the strain onto the other remaining motor mounts. After you take those things off, you're down to this. This is your upper timing cover. This is your lower timing cover. Upper timing cover is 2 10 millimeter bolts. That comes out of the way. You can see your cam gear and the top of the timing belt. This is nothing except it was spacing this out. So ignore that altogether and that. Those don't exist. We'll just call those the engine block. After that, you've got your lower timing cover. 1, 2, 3, 4. That comes off. Set that off to the side. All right, so then what you're left with is your camshaft gear, your tensioner, and your crank gear, and your timing belt. And you're gonna want to make sure everything is lined up. There are marks on the cam gear that match up to the cylinder head. The crank gear, you actually go back to the passenger side to where you would check ignition timing, TDC, and you line that up. And then what I like to do is I like to put a mark on one of the crank gear teeth and the oil pan, so I have a visual marker on the driver's side as well. And then you have your tensioner. Your tensioner has 2 bolts. One's a pivot, one's a hold down. So the next step is loosen these 2 bolts so you can move the tensioner out of the way, so then you can gently slip the timing belt off without moving the position of either one of these 2. All right, now we'll go to the car and we'll resume that timing belt already in progress.
The front side of the engine, if you can see, there is an arrow located right there on the back side of the cylinder head, and that is supposed to basically line up with this mark here on the cam gear. And once those are lined up and you've got that notch facing up and basically in line with the white mark I made, you know you've got the camshaft in the right position. Now we have to go down to the crankshaft and ensure that that is in the correct position. Actually, you don't go to the crankshaft. What you do is you go over to your ignition timing marks, and that will ensure we're in the right position. Okay, from the passenger side, what we need to do is we need to go down here and actually look at our ignition timing marks. So let's head down here and see what we can see. What we're looking for here is there's a little pointer right there that is on the back side of the block, and I have marked TDC with white. And as you can see, those 2 are lined up. So we've got the crankshaft in the correct position as well. We have verified the cam is in the right position. We've verified the crank is in the right position. We've got our motor mount out of the way. The only thing left to do is we need to release the tension on this tensioner so we can get this belt off. there we go. That broke loose. You can tell because there's a metal snapping sound. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Woo! Those are stiff. Those are difficult. All right, so I've got these two bolts loose, 1 and 2. And now, as you can see, here's our tensioner. We can move it and relieve the tension on this timing belt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to release the tension on this belt, and I'm going to slip it off of the camshaft. And there you go. Nothing moved on the camshaft. We're good there. Sneak it down past our motor mount spot where we've already removed a motor mount. There we go. That's the timing belt off. I just broke my microphone for about the 14th time. It's a slight disaster, but as you can see, you've got the belt off. The cam gear is still lined up. Right there, we're good. My marks on the crank. Now you can see my marks on the crankshaft are still lined up. Right there, that white paint in the center. So we're good. Now we need to put the new belt on without moving anything. And one thing you should do with timing belts is get a quality one. Don't get part store brand, get name brand. Dayco is a good belt company that's been around a very long time. That's just one of many, but that's the one I chose for this. For today's purposes, I'm going to start from the top. It doesn't really matter starting from the top or the bottom, as long as everything stays lined up. There is no master spline on this. So we've got it around our camshaft gear, just like that. All right, so we slipped our belt back on at the camshaft and ensured our lines are still lined up. Factory marks right there, arrow in line, notch at the top, lined up with our paint mark, and we have assured it's lined up at the bottom. As you can see, our crankshaft marks are still lined up. There's my white paint, and the tensioner, which is right here, is now tightened. So we can now put all this back together. All right, so that wasn't exactly the best video example of how to do a timing belt on a car, especially this one. There's not a lot of room for me to get in there and show you exactly routing for everything, but it's one cam gear, one crank gear, just like a timing chain, and one tensioner, just basically like a serpentine belt setup. Tensioner off, pull the belt off, put the new belt on, make sure your marks are still lined up. Then what you do is tighten the tensioner back down, then rotate the engine over by hand, recheck your timing marks at the camshaft and at the crankshaft, make sure everything lines up. Then it's a matter of putting it back together. You don't have to drain coolant on this one. The water pump is not integrated, it is off to the side. There are no gaskets involved. It's really a $15 belt and 2-3 hours time. If you have any further questions on timing belts, just let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can answer them. We should be able to get this back together today, and then we'll finish up this episode. So stick around, I'm gonna throw this back together and we'll finish everything up. All right, we've got everything back together. Timing cover is on, bracket is on, AC is not hooked up because it's not charged, so I just left the belt off. Valve cover's back on. This is back together with the fresh timing belt. So let's start up and see what happens. Seems to be idling pretty good. Not missing. So that means that, we got the timing belt definitely hooked up the right way. If it was off a tooth or anything like that, it would be running absolutely terribly and probably get started. Looks like you got it back together. So now it's gonna take a couple more test drives to work and back, and then we'll see what's gonna break next. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And again, if you have any other questions about this, don't hesitate to ask in the comments, and we'll see you next time.